Good afternoon. Haiti Oropesa with Florida U Judge, and I am here this afternoon with judicial candidate Nick Fiorentino. He is running for a seat that's open in Pinellas County. And so the election starts. You're going to tell us a little bit about that. Thank you for joining. This is very important. I started this in civic endeavor in like around 2015. I'm a lawyer locally, cover several counties here in the state of Florida. I'm licensed here, but at some point, as a lawyer, I decided to become civically engaged with at least trying to put out information about judges because I always had loved ones and friends tell me, who do I select? Because they didn't have that much information about judges. And on the ballots, it should not be that people skip over that section because they're unfamiliar. As a voter, sometimes, unfortunately, I try to get a sample ballot before to familiarize myself with who's on and who I should pick and not do it while I'm there. But so that's why I'm doing this. Thank you for coming because it's important. You're not the only person in this race. There's another candidate. He is welcome if he reaches out. I know that there's somebody that a local colleague that's supporting him. This is a neutral platform. Judges have to be neutral, right? When there's litigants. So I want this platform to be neutral. And I think I've learned this more throughout several years that with everything that's going on with vetting truth and vetting candidates before we cast a vote, I think it's the responsibility of each of us as voters to vet and to look for information on who you're going to decide to entrust with serving you. These judicial seats belong to the people, not any particular person. And so when you serve as a public servant, you're serving people. You have a very important role. And so thank you for being here to share your kind of thing. I'm very familiar with you already. And I think your profile as a candidate is very attractive. So I know that I know a little bit about some of the stories you've said, and I'm going to ask you about it in a little bit. But let's start off with why do you want to be a judge?
Well, good afternoon first. Thank you for having me. And thank you to anyone who's listening to this because it's so extremely important that people learn about the judicial races and who they're voting for. So start off by saying that. Okay. The decision for me to run happened when I had a case in 2015 over in Tampa. I was representing a father who had just gotten out of the military, and he had 50% of the time with his daughter. And the mother filed to modify that time sharing for no legal reason. And we had an all-day trial scheduled in Tampa. And halfway through that trial, the judge told us that she had plans and wasn't coming back after lunch. So we were forced at that point to present the best case we could in about half the amount of time. When the judgment was ultimately issued, there were significant errors in it, had the parties living in the wrong county, and it removed the majority of the time that my client had. And he went from 50-50 to every other weekend. And this was a real detriment to the family. I advised my client he needed to appeal. He could not afford to appeal it. He had spoken to an appellate attorney, and that just wasn't going to happen because he was just out of the military and in school. So I told him I would appeal this case for free for him because I felt that strongly about the errors that were made. And we appealed that case, and ultimately it was overturned. Everything the judge had ordered was overturned. He got all of his time back. But it was a year where he wasn't having significant time with his daughter. He was the only parent who had her in extracurricular activities, so she wasn't able to participate in those. And he was also remarried and had other children in the home, so his daughter wasn't able to maintain that relationship. So it was a real detriment to the family. And during that trial, you could just tell the judge had no interest in what was going on, never opened the exhibit book, wasn't allowing evidence to be presented. And I realized at that point how important it was for attorneys who have practiced for a significant amount of time to step away from their practices and serve in these roles. It's just extremely important to have this broad experience. And so from there, I became a mediator, a parent coordinator, and an arbitrator, all things that I thought would prepare me for the role. Because as attorneys, we're always advocating for one side or the other. And I thought training as a neutral would benefit me if I wanted to serve in that role. So I didn't just say one day, oh, I'm going to be a judge and I'm going to file. I've prepared for years for this role.
I've heard that story before, and for that, honestly, you get points for as a voter, because I know that that's a very rare thing where a lawyer offers to do an appeal pro bono.
Well,
So
and I had
that-
never done an appeal either. It wasn't like that was part of my practice. I had to learn how to do it to help this client.
And so let's talk about that, because you know what? I've done appeals. When I first started as a public defender in Hillsborough, I did some appeals, and that's yeah, you got to get up to speed. But since then, anytime that I think that a client should appeal, I send them to attorneys that regularly do appeals, because
Yes.
they're experienced in that. And that's not something that I'm doing routinely, but they are expensive. Okay. And so you just actually got some more points, because not only did you do it, you had to get up to speed immediately. And that's hard and that's difficult. So you were very vested in, and I imagine, I'm going to go ahead and say that, or assume which strongly, that you were personally vested now, because it's a justice thing.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I just could not allow this to sit, and I couldn't allow this family to be affected by it.
And I know in that realm, I have very good colleagues, which you know, that do family law. I refer those out when I get called. I don't know that I could. It's very stressful. I have known on the home front, not me personally, but loved ones, where there have been those types of issues with children involved. That's very stressful, and it's very hard on people. Okay, kids, parents. So, what you did was admirable,
Thank
and
you.
it really was.
And I did it for the client. I did it for the child. When I was going to law school, I always wanted to do family law. That was what I wanted to do. And many people, attorneys, law professors, everyone tried to talk me out of it. They said that's the worst area to go into. But I was set on doing that because of an experience I had when I was an intern. I had interned in college with the public defender's office in Pinellas County for a year. And I was an interviewer. And my job every morning was to go over to the jail and interview the newly arrested people. And I had to get their backstory, their history, and the circumstances regarding their arrest. And what I was seeing was there was a common thread. I was interviewing these kids who were 15, 16, 17. They were coming from broken homes. They were coming from foster care. And they had the same stories over and over. And, it was leading them down a bad path. And I decided from there, I wanted to do family law, surprisingly, not go into criminal defense or be a public defender, but go into family law so that I could help these families navigate these matters, put the kids first, and not end up on that path. So I thought it was kind of an intervention, and that's why I wanted to do it. And so I've always told my clients when they come in, I won't use the kids as a pawn. We're not going to play those games. If somebody doesn't pay child support, we're not going to withhold the child. The child's going to be the priority. And if that's not the type of divorce or situation you want to have, then I would recommend another attorney, because we're not going to do that. The Florida Supreme Court says the guiding star in family law is putting the children first, the best interest of the child. And so I explain that to my clients, and I've always done that. And if they don't want to proceed in that way, they become former clients.
So again, kudos on that. Let's momentarily speak about, I'm not going to guess. A lot of times when some people decide they want to leave their practice to serve, some of these persons, they take a pay cut. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a good salary and benefits and everything. sometimes they have very lucrative or very financially successful practices that they, so um let me ask you, I wanted to you're gonna go into wanting to serve the public in that role as a judge. It's very important. That is a very important branch. Judges have the ability to either get justice for people that come before them, rule and adjudicate in a fair manner after hearing everything, or they can really screw somebody's life up because they're not paying attention to facts. They're not listening. And
Right.
that's very important. So, you know, this should go without even saying, but you don't go into a race to be a judge because you like the title and to be called your honor and to have people go, oh, look, that person is a judge. They have power, which they do. But you have to, this is another reason why I do this. Okay, since 2015, because there are judges that I walk away saying, you know, this judge needs to be challenged.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you want to be a judge, you need to take the time, not try to rush through a docket because you want the day to go quickly. Do you go back to chambers or whatever? You need to listen to litigants when
Right.
they and
And, you mentioned, paying voters, paying attention, things like that. We have in Pinellas and Pasco, the Sixth Circuit, we have 69 judges, which means every 2 years, 23 judges are up for election. And it's extremely rare that voters have a say in those elections because the majority win unopposed. In this current cycle, there's 3 seats that'll be on the ballot in Pinellas County. 2 are open. 1 is a sitting judge who's being challenged. It's very rare that that happens, but that's why I tell people when you're making a decision, when there's an open seat, pay attention, do your research, because once that person gets in, they're in most likely until they decide it's time to go. Because
they
it's very,
call they call that the power of the incumbency, and you're right. Once they're in, it is hard to get them out. So you know what? So I want to speak about this because there was a headline recently about what you talked about. There's one judge who initially when like again, I used to endorse or say support. I'm not doing that anymore. Okay, I'm not. This platform is for people to come on, everyone. I'm not trying to just promote somebody and keep somebody up. Everybody's this platform is for the voters. So anybody could come out, but sometimes, you know, it's very hard to get somebody that maybe the local legal community thinks there's one judge that's sitting that should be challenged. Um and sometimes I think they shouldn't be challenged because they're good. There's good judges that are challenged, you know, but it's not their seat. It's the seat of the people. Thank God there's elections. We try to veer away from these other countries where there's totalitarian regimes. This is what you get forever. You're not going to vote. You don't have a say in who's in power. We have elections here. Great. Other than, of course, and in the federal system, they're for life, but still, you're voting for somebody who will ultimately have the power to appoint them. But state, at least here in the state, there's election judicial cycles. And even if a good judge is getting challenged, I think I might think, you know what, they shouldn't get challenged because they're good, but I'm not going to get upset about that.
well, it's one of the only positions in our elected government where people don't expect to get a challenger. It's interesting because if you're running for Senate or House or County Commission, you expect you're going to get an opponent. I mean, it's just the nature of being an elected office. And, running for judge, if I get elected and people think I'm not doing a good job, that's their job as attorneys to file and run against me. That's an obligation we have because the only ones who can do it are attorneys. And there's backlash when you do it because the only one who can challenge a judge is an attorney, and those attorneys still have to appear before that judge or that judge's friends, and it becomes a cycle.
And the thing is this, that then there's some judges that actually need to be challenged, and then the culture's such that the lawyers are afraid to challenge them because there's this unwritten rule, don't do that. What do you mean don't do that?
Right.
If you're a good judge, then you're gonna get a lot of support, and then you're gonna have it is what it is. I'd rather people not be afraid to even challenge good judges, because if there's this rule where you're not supposed to do that, that's a no-no, then the ones that really should be challenged, they're going to go unchallenged. Okay, so listening, huge. And I believe, based on your story, you've already gone through that as a lawyer. You felt like maybe the case wasn't, all the facts it weren't listened to or heard, and then it resulted in having to spend time submitting an appeal. Demeanor.
Yes.
That's huge.
Extremely. It's one of the most important things. You're going into, experience is important, but when you're not going to know every single thing that comes before you as a judge. So you have to, and excuse me, there's thunder outside my window.
I know, and I've been praying that because of the inclement weather, we don't get disconnected. Thank God that we're still on.
But one of the concern, you're not going to know everything, every case that comes before you. You have to be willing to learn. You have to, have that humility to learn things, learn from the attorneys, learn from your staff attorneys, do your own research. But demeanor can't be taught. Demeanor is something you either have or you don't. You should be the same person in the courtroom that you are outside of the courtroom. And that's what you get with me. I'm a very even-keeled person. I don't overreact, and I don't react suddenly to things happening around me. And I think that's important because
I do too. And I've interacted with you. I've interacted with you some. I've never seen you act in any way where I'm like, ooh, that there's a problem with that. I've seen some candidates at times that I'm thinking, I don't know about the demeanor. Let's see. And I've seen candidates that I've supported that then got on the bench, and I thought, but demeanors are very important. You have to be, the judicial canons require patience,
yes,
courtesy, and to treat people with dignity. So I think we have good judges here in Pinellas. So thank God for that. Okay. Anything that I'm missing that you'd like to talk about as far as your candidacy and inform them?
I'd like to talk, just kind of educate the people watching if they don't know, kind of what a county court judge does, because that might not be something people are aware of. So county court judges are usually assigned to a criminal division handling misdemeanors, a traffic division, a civil division handling cases under $50,000, small claims cases, landlord-tenant matters, simplified dissolutions of marriage. But county judges are also appointed acting circuit judges. So the judge who's currently holding the seat that I'm running for, who's retiring, is currently acting as a circuit judge in the Unified Family Court. And county judges also act as circuit judges in the Community Violence Court. So I think that's one of the things that's really important to pay attention to. It's not just a county judge goes to misdemeanor criminal court. You could be assigned to any of those divisions, and it's at the discretion of the chief judge. So you don't run to be a criminal judge or a traffic judge or civil. The chief judge makes that decision at his discretion. And he can also, like I said, make you an appointed circuit judge, acting circuit judge, to handle family matters and things like that. So it's extremely important when you're reviewing the candidates and looking at, the backgrounds, that you have broad experience. I've practiced family, criminal, civil, probate, traffic, small claims. I have a variety of cases I've handled over the last 23 years.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. I totally forgot, but that's something that's very important. You're well-rounded in all areas where you're right. If the chief is to switch you to criminal, you're ready to go. If another civil area, you've done that too, and family. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, we've been going on now for 20 minutes. It's thundering a lot here and over there. I think that the audio is going to pick up the thundering, but thank God that we've held good with the connectivity.
Yes.
All right. Let's share your website address. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put that at the bottom. It's for those of you watching or that will watch, nickfiorentino.com. That is um, a, a Fiorentino's judicial campaign website. You can go on there as you should to vet him, to read about him, get more familiarized with him. How long have you been practicing?
23 years.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about, I know I kind of took a little bit of a viewed briefly your website. I'm going to share that. That is your family, beautiful family. You want to talk about that a little bit? Just
Sure. I've been married to my wife, Mary, for 21 years. We share 4 kids together. These are the 2 that she has kids from a previous marriage, and these are our 2 kids together, who are both now in their 20s and, you know, going on with their lives and careers. But yeah, I've been married to Mary. She's a nurse for 21 years. We live in Seminole and have just been a part of this community for a long time.
You want me to navigate any other area on your
I
website?
think it's important to maybe show some of the endorsements and support I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me go there. Okay, so we're there. Did I lose you, Nick?
Well,
okay, great. Yeah. All right.
All
great.
right.
So
I have support from, you know, a lot of the public safety unions, police, fire, even the local realtor association has supported me. But I also have support from over 50 elected officials, current and former, from both sides of the political spectrum, which I think is important when you're running for judge, because while people don't agree on many things these days in politics, all of these people have come together and agreed that I'll be a fair and impartial judge and will work hard for the people of Pinellas County. And so I think it's important to have that broad support, like I said, from both sides of the political spectrum.
And let me just say this, Nick. Honestly, I've been broadcasting and having judicial candidates come on, and I don't think I've ever seen the amount of endorsements from people already in office. You do have, I don't think I've seen as broad of the support that you have ever. Now, okay, so this is impressive. You have Sheriff Gualtieri, the clerk Ken, Sarah Molo, the public defender. Look at this. Former Senator Jeff Brandes, Jack Latvala. I want to extend condolences. He just passed away.
Yes, he passed away on
I lost
Wednesday
you there.
evening, and we're all very saddened by that.
And I want to, yeah, now you came back. You momentarily, we're just going to go through if we get cut off, we're just going to continue. Okay. So to not lose this, but I wanted to extend condolences to the family, to his son, Chris. I know that, I wanted to just give this brief story on, Jack Latvala. I was critical of him one time online on a blog. It wasn't nice. I'm not going to say exactly what it was, but I remember my mom telling me, oh, no, you should take that off. And I did. But he remembered. And I remember calling him. He took my call. He reminded me of the criticism that wasn't nice. And he still listened to me, and he still helped me because I was calling him to pick his brain, and he did not. I felt bad thereafter, but I read one of the comments made by people reacting to his passing, and more than one, but one I remembered that he was a friend to even his foes. Yes. And when I read that, I said, that's true, because he could have totally ignored me and not even taken my call and declined helping me with the matter that I was asking questions about to get information from him, and he didn't do that. So I'm sad. to hear about his passing, and my condolences and prayers to his family.
Yes,
Okay.
I join you in that. You know, he was somebody who advised me through campaigns, and like I said, he really didn't reject people or, you know, shut them down. If you needed advice, he was there for you. And I think there's many people, elected officials, judges, former, who have Jack Latvala stories, and you know, he's been a real force in this community for many years, and I'm sorry that he passed away this past week.
Chris Sprouse, the property appraiser. You have, wow, look at this. And it goes on. Look, now Chris Latvala, commissioner, Renee Flowers. And these are people that, it's, you know, even though some of their races are partisan, here we have people from both sides the aisle that are supporting you. Linda Allen, I practiced in front of her, great judge. You have, look at this. It's like on and on and on. You have all this incredible support. Wow. Look at this. So the voters that are going to vet you, they could go to Nick Fiorentino. It's on the ticker.com to look at all this endorsement. Like, when is this gonna end? Wow. Yeah. So I'm just scrolling down.
I'm very proud of the people who have, you know, stepped up and supported me in this.
And look at all the attorneys.
Like over 100 attorneys who have also joined the campaign.
Yeah. I see a lot of people who are great attorneys that are, yeah. So this is very impressive. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this time. Let me bring you back on. Where are you? Hold on a second. Where are you appearing like this? I don't know why. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and take I'm going to just, you are on the screen. What's happening here with this? So I'm going to take myself off. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you have the full screen. And this is what I'd like to, you could say whatever last things you'd like to leave the voters with. But I want you to kind of give them the dates of the early voting and all of that. Okay? And then the actual day of so I'm going to take myself off.
So we have currently, it's important to know, a lot of people in Pinellas County vote by mail, and the law changed this year. And so if you normally vote by mail, you need to re-request your ballot this year. So if you go to votepinellas.gov, you can make that request now, and you'll receive your ballot in the next week or so. If you want to vote early, you can vote early from August 8th to August 16th at the Supervisor of Elections Office. There's 3 locations in Pinellas County. If you are not registered to vote yet, or you've moved, you have until July 20th. And then Election Day is August 18th. I hope you'll take the time to visit my website, read my background, look at my experience, and I hope to earn your vote on August 18th.
All right. Well, good seeing you, Haiti Oropesa with Florida U Judge, and till next time.
Thank you, Haiti. I appreciate your time this morning or this afternoon.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.